You know, the whole idea of a flying taxi has always felt like something straight out of science fiction, right? Well, what if I told you that's not the case anymore? In fact, the assembly lines are firing up and the future of how you get around is being built, literally right now.
So, that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, we've all seen flying cars in the movies. It's always been this symbol of the future that never quite arrives. But is this it? Is this the moment it finally jumps from the big screen into our real lives?
Well, the answer is a pretty straightforward no. This isn't just some prototype tucked away in a lab anymore. The assembly lines are actually starting to roll. Seriously, what used to be a futuristic dream is now becoming an industrial reality. And believe me, it is happening way faster than most of us realize. Okay, so what's the big deal? What's the news that's actually pushing this whole thing from a cool concept into something real? It all boils down to a huge announcement, one that's signaling a major shift for the entire industry. So check this out. A top US startup called Joby Aviation just announced they're doubling their manufacturing capacity. But here's the kicker. They're not going it alone. They've teamed up with an absolute giant to help them scale up, Toyota. And that partnership, right there, is the key. It shows this is moving past the research and development phase and into full-on production.
Now, we've been throwing around the term flying taxi, but the real technical name is a bit more specific. And honestly, understanding it is key to getting what this revolution is all about. So, let's break it down. What exactly is this thing?
The term you're going to hear a lot is eVTOL. That stands for Electric Vertical Takeoff and Landing. The easiest way to think about it is like a hybrid. It can take off and land straight up and down, just like a helicopter. But then, it flies forward super efficiently, more like a plane. And the best part, it's all electric. And the design is what really sets it apart. Instead of that one huge loud rotor you see on a helicopter, an eVTOL has multiple small electric propellers. Now, this isn't for flying across the country. Nope. It's built for one specific purpose, the hop across cities, flying right over all that traffic down below. And it doesn't even need a runway.
Okay, I know what you're probably thinking right now. So, it's just a fancy electric helicopter, right? Well, not quite. The differences are actually super important, and they're the reason why eVTOLs might actually work as a mass transit solution in cities, where helicopters just couldn't.
Let's put them side by side. The differences are huge. Helicopters, they run on fuel, they have that one massive, loud rotor, and they create a ton of noise and emissions. eVTOLs, on the other hand, are all electric. That means zero emissions. And all those smaller propellers, they make it so much quieter. And that is the whole point. They're designed from the get-go to be neighborhood-friendly, to fly in cities without all the noise and fuss of a helicopter.
And that brings us right to the core mission here. Look, this isn't just about building a cool new flying machine. It's about trying to solve one of the biggest headaches of modern life. I'm talking about city traffic.
It's really important to get this. They're not trying to get rid of helicopters, for things like emergency services or construction. No, they're creating a whole new category of transportation. And it has one single, very focused mission: beat the traffic jam by just flying over it. So what does this look like in real life? The vision is a whole network of these landing pads. They're calling them vertiports, on top of buildings, maybe at train stations, all across a city. You just hop in an eVTOL, go from one vertiport to another, and turn a miserable hour-long drive in traffic into a flight that takes, like, a few minutes. Imagine that.
But, having a brilliant design is one thing. To actually make this a real option for millions of people, you have to figure out how to build them. And not just build them, but build them safely, efficiently, and at a huge scale. And that leads us to the biggest hurdle of all: mass production.
And this is where Joby is getting really serious. They're planning to run their factory in California 24/7. They're pouring money into the people and the machines they need to go from making just a few prototypes to cranking out a steady stream of these aircraft. So, what does this ramp-up actually look like in numbers? The goal is to double their output by 2027, going from making 2 of these a month to 4. Now, I know what you're thinking, 4 a month? That's nothing. But you got to remember, in the world of aviation, for a brand new type of aircraft, that kind of increase is a huge deal. It's incredibly ambitious. Which brings us to a really interesting question. Why is a car company, and a legendary one like Toyota at that, getting involved in aviation? Well, the answer is kind of the secret ingredient that makes this whole thing possible. See, Toyota isn't just cutting a check and walking away. They are bringing their decades of know-how in mass production. I'm talking about the famous Toyota production system, the thing that literally changed how cars are made. They're basically teaching an aviation startup how to build planes with the same insane efficiency and quality control that they use to build cars. So here's the game plan, right?
Step 1. You perfect the aircraft design. Step 2. You use Toyota's playbook to build a ton of them. But at the same time, you've got Step 3. Cities have to build the vertiports. And Step 4. Regulators need to write the rulebook to make sure it's all safe. It's definitely a complex puzzle, but for the first time, it feels like all the pieces are starting to click into place.
Okay, so this is all super interesting from a tech and business angle, but let's get down to it. What does this actually mean for you and me, for our daily lives? When could we actually see these things flying over our own cities?
All right, let's look at a rough timeline. Production is scaling up right now as we speak, but the target for the very first commercial flights is the late 2020s. We're hearing that places like Japan want to be among the first to get them. So everything happening today, all the manufacturing and regulatory stuff, is the essential groundwork for that future to happen.
So, let's wrap this up. What are the big things to remember? First, eVTOLs are a whole new type of aircraft. They're electric, they're quiet, and they're built just for cities. Second, they're not just a concept anymore. Mass production is actually starting, thanks to teams like Joby and Toyota. And finally, the way this could change how we get around our cities? Well, it's pretty massive.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Just picture your own daily commute for a second. But instead of being stuck in traffic on the ground, you're looking up at an open sky. As this technology makes its way from the factory floor to our city skylines, the real question isn't if it's going to change our commute, it's just a matter of how.